Hello YouTube. In today's video I want to talk about the tendency to compare ourselves to others. And I got this idea this morning making breakfast. And in my kitchen I have a bulletin board with different things pinned on the board, reminders. And also on that bulletin board, I have a picture of the Wright brothers on there. And they're just two men that I admire. I've read about them, I studied them. And I just posted that picture of them. It's a black and white photo of them. I printed out and I just posted it on my bulletin board. And I was looking at it this morning and I was thinking about them, their family. And was thinking their mom and dad, Orville and Wilbur Wright's mom and dad, had no idea what their boys would become. They were just being who they were as parents and doing the best that they could to teach them and to raise them up. And that came to mind this morning. And then later on I decided to do a little bit of reading. I try to read every day. And I'm currently reading a book about Dennis Burkitt. He's a doctor who did some work in Africa and pioneered cancer and nutrition research in the 50s and 60s and 70s. And then I was thinking, it's a great book. I'm in the last few chapters of it. And I'm reading that book, and it's a wonderful story. And here I'm reading about him, and he's documenting what his research and all the awards that he got, all the people that he interacted with and influenced, and friends that he made along the way, and all his travels and safaris through Africa. Just an amazing story. Was married, had a family. It documents how his daughters grew up. They married. And then this morning I read about his first grandchild. And I thought, how awesome is that? And I'm not sure what year he passed away, but I haven't got to that part of the book yet. But I was thinking to myself, what a life well lived. Here's this man, a physician, decided to go abroad to use his skills to do good in Africa and help the people there. Did all this amazing groundbreaking work, built hospitals, and married, had a family. And I found myself comparing myself to him. And then thinking how much I'm lacking in my life. And not having a lot of those relationships that he cultivated. Never having a family of my own and children and all of that at this stage. Even though it's not too late for me, so I'm not feeling sorry for myself. But I was comparing myself to him. And so I got to thinking, I had to remind myself that we can't compare ourselves to other people. And that's the main focus of this video, is not comparing ourselves to other people, and that we all have our own unique skills and abilities and talents and path in life. And we don't necessarily realize what our contribution is sometimes, or the people that we influence. And Dennis Burkitt, when he first went to college, his father wanted him to be an engineer like him, so that's what his focus was, to get into some type of engineering. But his roommate was going into medicine. And it was because of his roommate that influenced him to then branch off to go into medicine. And it documents in the book how he was very hesitant to tell his father that he was not going to be going into the engineering field, but instead was going to go into medicine. And his father was supportive of that. His mother especially. And so I've got to thinking, we may not necessarily be a famous doctor. We may not be the Wright brothers. We may not do such amazing things like them. But we can't forget the impact that we may have in people that then do great things. Like Dennis Burkitt's roommate who influenced him to become a doctor. What if he didn't have that roommate? Would he have just continued on to be an engineer and never became that influential, well-known doctor who changed the world and is still impacting people in regards to health and nutrition and the discoveries that he found? The parents of the Wright brothers. I've heard of stories of a woman in town who loved the neighborhood children, and her house was open to the kids, and there were kids that weren't necessarily loved. They came from rough families, and she loved them and cared for them and encouraged them and helped them, and may even helped with homework the best that she could and whatnot, and fed them and gave what she could. And I heard that there was a funeral for that woman. I forget what her name was. And all the people that she impacted, those kids, and some of them who have grown to be adults, came to that woman's funeral. Truly remarkable. And something as simple and basic that she did, just being herself and caring for those kids in the neighborhood and the impact that she had. And who knows what some of those children grew up to be that influenced them to become who they became if it wasn't for her. Or parents who adopt a child and open their home, and they may not think they're doing anything spectacular. They're not perhaps may not be well known, but they're still doing something good. Or there are people that do things, maybe they write a book or something, they discovered something that maybe people in their particular area in community didn't receive it well, they passed away, and years later somebody finds something that they wrote, a research that they did, a discovery of some type that they were looking at, they dusted it off, and it changed something. But the person who did it, who wrote those words, weren't alive to see the results of their work, or that it would be well received years down the road. And so I remind myself that we should just continue being who we are, doing what we're doing. Don't compare ourselves to others. Do what it is that you're gifted to do. And you may not realize the impact that it may have down the road. You may not even see the impact. Something that you said to somebody. Is there something that I said to somebody? Is there something that I did that influenced somebody in a positive way, that changed the trajectory of something in a positive way. I may never know. You may never know. Maybe you do know. Maybe somebody came back later to you and said, because of you, because you said that to me, or what that book that you gave me, or what you said to me at that particular time in my life absolutely changed me, and I want to thank you for it. Maybe some people have that experience. Maybe you have. Maybe you can share that in the comments. And so I remind myself of that. And I too can still continue to do things that I haven't experienced yet. And I remind myself also that we can still do great things later in life. Colonel Sanders, who started Kentucky Fried Chicken at the age of 65. Famous artists, Rembrandt, there's a few others. Some of their best works, some of the best masterpieces that they ever created, they did in advanced age later in life. And so I compared myself to Dr. Dennis Burkitt and looked at his life and started to feel a little inadequate and a little down at first, comparing myself. And I think that's one of the downfalls of social media, like Facebook. People start seeing what other people are doing, looking at their so-called wonderful life that they're putting out there on social media, and we find ourselves comparing ourselves, maybe getting down, depressed, because our life doesn't measure up to them, and then we feel like we just aren't measuring up, or we're inadequate, or we feel like we may have failed somewhere along the line in our life. So we have to not have that tendency to do that and compare ourselves, and that we can still continue to do things later in life. Your contribution, your impact in this world, you may not realize, but you are doing great things. You are changing the world. So don't compare yourself to others. And so that's what I wanted to share. This was an impromptu video. I carry my camera with me out here hiking, and those ideas and thoughts were permeating in my mind this morning and this afternoon, and I thought, you know what, that would be a great message to share out there. Maybe somebody else might be in a similar situation where you're looking at yourself and think, man, what a loser I am, or man, I'm nothing like my neighbors over there, or I'm nothing like so-and-so. But I remind myself of stories that I've heard on how ordinary people changed somebody else's life. And I remember a former co-worker, him and his wife lost their child to infant death syndrome, sudden infant death syndrome, SIDS. And his wife she had an engineering background, and because of that experience of losing a child and the great support that they got from the staff, the healthcare staff and nurses, because of that impact and experience around those nurses and in healthcare, she decided to then become a nurse herself, and did that. And just think, yeah, it was a tragedy to lose a child, but something good came out of it, and then the impact that the people that surrounded her during that difficult time changed the trajectory. A nurse perhaps said something and supported her and encouraged her in a way that she too decided to do that. So there's things that we're perhaps doing. It could be the most simplest thing, a word, giving somebody a ride, anything. something that you do that you don't really think highly of, it can be something of great significance, and you may not realize it. So that's all I really wanted to share. I hope this spoke to somebody. And so again, it's I say it to you, I remind it to myself, to me, that don't compare yourself to people, Jim. And this is your story, this is your life, and you're still writing it. And great things are yet can still be had and to come in my life and in my journey, and also in your journey as well. So keep going, keep your head up, and keep being you. And so that's all I really wanted to share. I hope this finds you well, and I'll see you on the next one.